Hello and thank you for joining me on this course. I'm really excited about showing you how to turn a single image into a motion graphic. I'm Sunny and I've been doing motion graphics for 15 years right now with major clients around the world. And in this course, we're first of all going to mask, then we're going to split the layers up into 3D layers, and one after the other. Then we're going to add some effects, and then we're going to finalize with some lighting and then render the whole scene out. So join me on the first lesson. In this overview video, I will be explaining what the parallax effect is, what depth of field is, how we're going to use the single image to create depth of field and parallax, and a general game plan. I really believe having a game plan for a project like this is essential. A parallax effect is when you have a series of images completely independent from one another and they are all moving at different speeds. I think one of the best ways to explain this is using the old classic game Guess Who. As you can see, the character from the first row is separate from the 4 characters on the second row, which is independent from the third row, and the third row is independent from the fourth row. Now, if you look at this image, the first person would be the water, the second row of people would be the island, and if you look back here, the third and fourth would be the buildings and the sky. This is what's known as parallax. This image can be further heightened by simulating depth of field. This first image over here, the building at the back, will be extremely focused while the rest of it will be very, very blurred. As the camera pans round, more of the image will start becoming more and more clearer as the image at the back becomes blurred, revealing the rest of the image. This will give the whole animation a sense of depth. To actually create the depth, we're going to have to use masks. Masking is when we take parts of this image out and simply cut it apart. We will be duplicating the image many times and creating separate masks for each building, for the island, for the water, and potentially the sky. So what is the game plan? The game plan is to split up the images using masks, separate the images, add a camera, and then add effects. And this simple game plan can be used to other images as well, which I'll be showing you at the end of the course. This technique was first introduced to the wider audience in 2002. The film was called The Kid That Stays in the Picture. I really recommend you pause this video right now, go straight onto YouTube, type this in and watch some of the scenes. The majority of the film was made just with single images using this technique. This gave the impression that the pictures were more than just a static photo. I really think it's a good example, so go watch the trailer now and let's get ready to learn how to do these techniques. In this first lecture, we will be splitting this image up into many different pieces using masks. I will explain exactly what masks are, but if you could follow along for now, open up this file 01 and let's get going. Before we start anything, the very first thing we need to do is create a composition. So if you go to composition on the top, new, 1920 by 1080, frames per second 25 if you're PAL, and if you're NTSC, 29.97, or if you're doing it for film, 24. For today, I'm just going to stick with 25 because I'm in the UK. We will say around 10 seconds, and we can keep the color as black. And let's name this file Lecture 1. Lecture 1. There we go, we have our first composition. So the first thing we need to do is grab hold of this image and place it down here. Now at this stage of the game we need to start looking for lines. So if you see over here, we have a line here, one over there, one on the other side of the island, one just after the water up into the wall, maybe all the way there behind this bush, and then we have another one at the top of the buildings. So this is where we're going to start masking. The first one down here, if you grab hold of the pen tool, click anywhere off the canvas, make sure your image is selected, have your pen tool ready, click, and this will create your first mask. Go along the line, use Control minus and plus to zoom in and out. You don't have to be very neat about this just yet, we can clean this up later. But for now, just go around, we need to go around the tall grass, or in this case, shorter grass. Just around here. If you get into the edge of the screen and you need to move along, hold down the space bar, left click and drag, and then you can carry on with your mask. We initially always block everything out, and then afterwards we can finesse it. So don't be too pedantic about this. Let's go across. There we go. If you've made a mistake, you can always press undo. Control Z. Let's go around there. There we are. And then when you come off the canvas, if you just go around, just move that down, and there we have our first mask. So what exactly is a mask? I wanted to first of all make you follow along and build your first mask before I start explaining what it is. If you look over here, we have a layering system. We have one file, and then we can have another one underneath if we duplicate this file. I'll just do this just to show you. And I will delete the mask of the top layer. And as you can see, it doesn't seem like it's done anything. But if I am to make this file a black and white file, there we are. You can see that the mask has allowed this one to reveal and this section to be black and white. So this is what a mask is. It allows you to show parts of the image. It doesn't cut the image out because it's still under there underneath, as you can see. But what a mask does, it just reveals whatever's in here. They're very versatile. You can subtract with a mask. At the moment it's adding, so it's whatever's within the mask is an add. Whatever is outside of a mask would be a subtract. And if we follow along, we'll create more of these to start revealing more of the buildings. So let's carry on. Let me first of all delete this second layer. I'm going to duplicate this first one with Control and D. Just open up the mask. And first of all, I am going to press Subtract. Grab hold of the pen tool again and start working on this second line. Now, the line I would like to use is probably this top one over here. This one here. So click off the canvas, and like before, just start blocking this out. Probably need to go around this sign. So the idea here is to mask out all the shapes that would be on the same part of land. So because this would be on this piece of land, we need to cut this out. Just zoom in a little bit. And again, this is also part of this land, so we need to chop this out. If you click and drag with the mask, you can start curving this. And then click again. Let's just follow this round. Let's go around this man. If you have a Wacom pen, I'd really recommend you do this with a Wacom pen. It works very well. Click around here. Again, you don't need to be perfect for now. We can always feather this or play with it later.
We just initially need to block it out. And just down here, there we are. It's quite difficult to see, I gotta make sure I look out. Yep, still on right track. Zoom out a little. I could go right to there. Zoom in. And again, just keep zooming in and out. Around this person's phone. This can be done with any image. Concepts are the same. There we are. So as you can see over here, this fence is part of this island. So I would need to cut around this fence and around this bush. So I'll start that. Zoom in. And just undo that. I know some people find this really therapeutic. I'm definitely one of them. Now, this is a good question here. Is this lamppost on this side or is it on that side? Let's have a zoom out. Let's have a look. I think it's safe to say it's on the other side, with that one being there and that one. So we can cut right past that. And then stay over here. Let's just get this there. Actually, I will undo that one. I'm going to go straight across on this occasion. Zoom out. Get to the other side of the canvas, and for now we'll go straight to the bottom, go across, and straight into there. If you're following along, please open up file 02, and in this lecture we're going to carry on with the masking. So carrying on, we have two layers. We have achieved our first layer, as you can see, just cutting this path here. And then on the second layer, we have this bit. Now the first thing I need to do is first of all turn this into intersect. Now what exactly is intersect? Intersect is when you have two masks on one layer and both masks are over each other like this. And what we're trying to say is we only want to look at this part over here. So if I was to go into add, you would see it would add everything up until here. And if I was to go and subtract, it would take away everything. But intersect along with the other mask would show just that one little part. Now this is going to be really useful going forward. So going forward, I'm going to do the same techniques in the last video. I'm going to use nothing but the space bar to go across, the plus and control plus and minus to go in and out, using the pen tool. And let me just turn this off for now so you can see it. I'm going to slowly go through every single line. So it'll be this one here, the buildings, the building in the background, and then the sky will be on its own layer. So in the next few moments, I'm going to show you what I've done, but I'm going to speed everything up because it's the exact same technique. So going forward, I'm going to need you to focus on the pen tool, control in and out, the spacebar, and just keep going with it. Go through every single line you can see, cut it all out, and then we'll move over to the next session. In lecture 3, we're going to clean up our masks and start moving them in the Z space. So if you want to follow along, the file is 03. And the first thing you may have noticed is I have actually colored all the layers. And I've just picked a random color for each one. I personally like to color layers. So for instance, if I needed 2 of the colors to be on the island, I would know to use 2 of the same colors. And it's just a nice, neat way to keep your file. So I'd really recommend using these colors. It's just a case of clicking this little box and then just choosing the color. So I've done that for all the layers. So let's start making it 3D. And the way to make it 3D is to click all of these boxes over here. And what that does, I will just turn one of them off. If I was to show you the position, press P for position. You have your X and your Y. I'll just undo that quickly. And then when you click this box, it also gives you a Z space. Now this is exactly how we do the 3D technique. And it's going to look amazing when you start moving a camera around. You're going to really see the depth and the parallax effect. So let's start with this one. Let's rename this water. And we essentially need to have the water at the very top layer because it's the one that's closest to us. So for this, we will keep this at 0. Let's move over to our next image, or our next layer. So on this one, I'll rename them as we go along. We'll call this the island _2. And we can put this layer just underneath the water layer. The next one, oh actually, we'll put the position first. So if we have water on 0, let's move this position back. Let's say around, let's go 200. And then let's use the scaling tool, which is S for scale. We'll move that one just slightly bigger. And then once we've positioned these, we can start cleaning up our masks. There we are. I'll just zoom in. Make sure that's looking okay. Let's have a look. Scale it just a little bit more. Position it back further. There we go. So we can round it off to 300. The next one, which is the water. We'll call this middle water. And we'll name that number 3. Underscore number 3. Position. Zoom out. So if that one's at 300, let's put this at 400. Let's scale that. Just a little bit more. Yeah, that seems about okay. Yep, that's looking good. And let's name this one wall underscore 4. Bring this up here and same again. Oh, grabbed all of the wrong one. And again, there we are. Position. So the position of the middle water was 400. Let's put 450 on this one. Scale, and we'll scale it up. So as you can see, all we're doing is moving everything further back. Similar to the original Guess Who game I showed earlier. So we'll just get this scaled, line that up. That looks about right. And we can clean all this later. But for now, we just need a general depth. Next layer. Ah, yes. Now we're going to go into the buildings. Left underscore building. We'll put this on layer 5. I actually want all the buildings to be on the same layer. Well, this building, this one, and this one on the same layer, because this building's further back and this one's the one furthest back. I'll just keep that one there for now. I'll hide that. Where is the other one? There we are. Middle building, underscore 5. So put the 5s together. That one's too far back. Where is the other one? There we go. Right building underscore 5. There we are. So these three, if you select all three, position. If the wall is at 450, I'm going to put these at 500. Now I'm going to scale them individually. We're nearly there. There we are. Middle building. Scale this one up. I'm just using the cursors up and down when I have the scale selected, just to, you could either type in a number, drag, or just use your cursors up and down. If you hold shift, it goes up faster by 10. Let's go. I think I had it right the first time, yes. And then let's move over to the last few layers. Sky, we could just put this right at the very back. I'm not sure what number that will be just yet. Car park. I think the car park would be around the same as number 5, so let's put that one as 5. Car park. Underscore 5. So position, we'll go 500 again. Scale. And if you can't see anything, if it gets a bit messy, you can always click on this bit here. This hides all the masks. So let's get that slightly bigger. There we are, nearly there. And again, we can always clean the masks later. There's a couple of buildings. That's the furthest. We'll call this back building. That one will be 6. So again, 500, we can put the back building at 600. Scale them up. And then we'll rename this far building. Underscore 7. And then we can rename underscore 8. So for the far building, let's go back 600. Let's go for 700. Scale. That's about right. The sky. If that's at 700, let's put the sky as far back as 1000. Scale this up. There we go. So if you remember in the first lecture, I was talking about how this will look like a game of Guess Who. If you click on your cameras, click on Custom View 1, and if you use the C button, you can rotate and actually see what's going on. And this is what causes the depth and the parallax effect. If you press C again, you can move across, and then C again, it zooms. Just use it as a toggle for now. Or you can just click up here. Anyway, let's have all the frames selected. Minimize them all. And let's start cleaning up our masks. So the first thing we need to do is toggle this mask visibility. Go back to our selection tool, and if you click on water, you can see our mask over here. Let's zoom in with Control Plus, and let's start cleaning up our masks. Now, there's a couple of ways to do this. I would recommend sticking with the pen tool and the selection tool. You can use the selection tool to click the points and start cleaning this mask up like this. And if you need to add any more points, you click the pen tool and you can just add some more. So for the next few moments, I recommend you go around, clean every single mask up, each and every one, and if you need to add any points, go ahead. And in the next lesson, we'll start looking into cameras and adding the depth. Now that we have cleaned up our masks, let's start lecture 4, animate a camera, and then animate the depth of field. So if you're following along, please open up file 04. And the first thing we're going to do is go to Layer, New, Camera. Let's keep everything as default and press OK for now. And the first thing we're going to do is make a keyframe at 10. So if we just go down, we need the position. Now the reason we're doing this here is so we want to end on this position. We want to start from a slightly turned position, and we're going to have the scene start dark. So as we come round, we need to make a keyframe over here. I also want to keyframe the point of interest. We can also animate what we want to look at specifically. Let's start on the position at the beginning. If we just start looking up, a little bit down, I think I want to move over to the right. There we are, we have some slight turn to the left. So as you can see, as we go back and forth, the image is breaking as we come over here. And the way to cover this up would be to fill them out with the buildings. A good way to do this is to start off by going to Layer, New, Solid, and we'll go for a bright magenta color. Put this at the very bottom. So now we can see blatantly where all the holes are. In this section, I've speeded up the footage. I'm only using the position tool and the scale tool. I'm using this to get rid of the magenta color and try and get rid of the majority of the magenta color. You might not be able to get it all. If you can, great. If you can't, it's not the end of the world, because towards the end, we'll grab hold of the magenta solid and we'll turn it black, and it should blend into the darker shadow areas. If scaling, some of your images are flying off to one side, use the anchor point on the top left hand corner, click on the anchor point, and then click onto the middle of the image or the middle of the building, island, and then click on the anchor point again to stay off anchor point mode and carry on working. If you need to feather the mask, go into your mask and find the feather option. Simply just click and drag left and right. You don't want to feather it too much as it'll become fuzzy. But at the same time, if you're finding that the edges are very harsh, please use the feather tool. This is the part where maybe you want to put on some music. You can have some good fun at this part. This is the part where you finesse everything, make it look nice. Make sure you're constantly scrubbing back and forth and try and cover as much of that magenta as you possibly can. And now we have finished that. Go into the magenta solid, layer, solid settings, and let's turn this into black. So before we finish off, we're going to animate the point of interest. So if you go to your camera layer, press U to reveal all the keyframes. We already have one keyframe here, which we're happy with. We're just going to do the one at the very beginning. So let's play around with the point of interest. Let's look up slightly. Let's zoom in further. Move this way. I want to have more of the sky. Alright, let's have a look at that. You can really feel the sense of depth. In this lecture, we're going to add some realism to the camera by adding in some depth of field. If you're following along, please open up file 05. And now we have our camera sorted and we have everything in position. Let's go into the camera, open up this tab and go to the camera settings. Now, the first thing we need to do is turn on the depth of field, and it probably doesn't do anything at first, and it's because we need to focus on the focus distance and the aperture. So at 5 seconds, I want everything to be clear and clean, so I'm going to put a keyframe on aperture and focus distance. And at frame 0, let's start off with the aperture, and let's just bump this right up. And as you bump it up, you can start seeing the images starts going blurry. It's getting blurrier, and this is exactly what we want, because we want to have the image very blurry and it starts revealing itself. As it comes towards the end. So keep going up. I don't want it completely blurry because I do want to be able to see something. And this is where the focus distance comes in. So now we have everything blurry. If you click and drag on the focus distance, you should be able to see if you just move back and forth. Could you see? If I move it over to the left, this is very focused. And then if I move it slightly to the right, the island becomes focused. So what we want to do, as we start quite zoomed in, I want to focus on something further away, and then as it comes round, reveal the rest of the image. So let's have a look at maybe making this building here. I feel it's quite a predominant building. We start with the focus on here, and this is quite focused, so maybe a little bit further, maybe play around with the aperture a little bit. So the focus is around here now. Goes across. This is becoming clearer. This one's becoming clearer. These are a little bit blurry yet. Go around. And the rest of the image starts revealing itself. Let's do a RAM preview. Press 0 on the numpad. Now the RAM preview's done. Yeah, I like that. That looks good. You can really see the parallax. You can see the depth in the image. Brilliant. In the next few lectures, we're going to carry on with adding some effects and some secondary animation. In lecture 6, we're going to start off with particle effects. Please open up file 06 to follow along. And the first thing we're going to do is create a new layer. So create a new solid. New solid. Keep everything as is. Okay. Leave the solid just under the camera. And if we go over to our effects and preset panel, type in CC particle world right there. Click and drag onto the solid. And you'll see that there's a bunch of particles flying out. Now we're going to use this for some atmosphere and for some secondary animation. The first thing I'm going to do is go to the actual particle. Look at the particle type. As you can see, it's a line. I'm not a fan of this for this. So let's turn this into a faded sphere. And let's just solo this layer for now so we can only see this. Let's change the color of the sphere. Let's make the birth ray white. No, actually, let's go for more of an orangey, just a slightly lighter color. Let's go for that. And then we'll have the death color as white. Let's make the death size 0.01. And then the birth, we can play with this as we move along, but let's make it quite small. Let's go for 0.1. That's the particle size. Yeah, that's getting there. We're looking good. Now, this thing here is called a producer. We need to make this bigger. So if you go into the producer panel, look at the radius, make the X big, make the Y big, and then make the Z depth big. We want to have some good depth in this scene. Let's go for, we'll round that up to 2. You may have noticed it's not moving along with the camera, and that'll be because we haven't clicked the 3D layer. So as soon as you click the 3D layer, you see that? Brilliant. And as you can see, it's the effects that we did earlier in the previous lesson with the depth of field. Seems to be working with the particles. And this is ideal. This is great, in fact. Yeah. Right, let's calm these particles down. Let's move over to the physics. And at the moment it's on explosive. We don't want this. Let's go to viscose. This is like a calmer version. Let's turn the velocity down to 0. Let's add minus 0.1 on the gravity. That's happening too much. Let's go 0.01. I want it to be subtle. Yep, that's working. I'm going to go back to my particles. I think they're a little bit too big right now at the start, so we'll make the birth 0.05. There we are. And the birth rate, it seems to be doing quite a lot of particles for now, but we can play with this when we have the rest of the image revealed. But for now, let's move it down to 1 second. Right, I think we're getting there. Let's have a look what it's like with the rest of the image. Let's put the black solid above the camera. Let's RAM preview this. Again, let's play around with some of these settings. It doesn't seem to be showing much right now, so let's add more to the birth rate. Let's go to the particles. Let's have the birth size back to 1. 0.1. There we are. Let's RAM preview this. So as you can see, the particles are starting to come in now. It really gives a sense of depth, and you can really see it's bringing the image to life. Yeah, I think I quite like that. I'm just going to add one little thing, and that is to turn the birth rate, the birth size, 0.15. Just a little bit bigger. And let's turn the gravity 0.005. And before we RAM preview this, Let's add more in the Z depth. Let's go to 3.5. Let's run preview this. As you can see, the particles are starting to come in now. I think there's maybe a little bit too much. So I'm going to go up to the birth rate. I'm going to put the longevity, the life of it, to maybe 3 seconds, but then knock down the birth rate to 1.5. Run preview. So we're nearly getting there. We're getting there with our particles. I think that's looking good. I think the only thing we need to do is move the particles slightly back. So if we get the position, move the position into the Z space. Let's move it back forward. There we are. And let me change some of the size. I think the birth size is still a little bit big now over here. So 0.1. It's just a case of playing with these settings. Let's get it right. Yep, okay. I think we're there. Let's have one last run preview. There we are, that's looking good. Brilliant. In lecture 7, we're going to be creating water effects. So now we have our depth with our particles. Now's the best time to start animating some water. And this is known as secondary animation. So let's click over to our water layer. We'll do this first one for now. So with the water layer selected, let's go to Effect, Distort, Ripple Effect. Let's bump up the radius. And for now, let's just bump up the wave quite high, just so we can see where it is. You should be able to start seeing the ripples. I'll just bump it up further. Make the radius quite high. And then let's grab hold of this anchor point. So if you click on this, the center of the ripple, bring it down to the bottom corner, because this is exactly where I want the ripple to start coming out. And then start rippling this area over here. Okay, like we could tone this down. I'll just move my work area start back to 5. So we can see the ripple, because before it's out of shot. So let's have a quick run preview of this. So it's pretty crazy. Let's tone down the radius. I say we'll go to 25. Yeah, that's not bad. We could maybe move that a little bit further up. So let's say 35. Let's put the height down to 18. Just playing around with these settings, just seeing how it looks. I might move the center of the ripple slightly down and maybe further over here, so we get more of it coming around here. Let's move it further down, a little bit to the left. Now let's give that a run preview. Let's see what this looks like. Let's see how that's turned out. So it's still a little bit crazy. And if you've noticed, there's nothing happening to the right side. So maybe my radius is too small. We could bump that up to 50. Yeah, that seems to be doing something. We'll go even higher. 70. Let's knock down the height down to 10. And the width, let's go further apart. We'll round that up to 60. One last preview. I think the only thing, if I was to knock anything down, is maybe the speed is quite fast. So if we halve the speed by 0.5. And the other thing I want to address is if you zoom in, you will see that the grass is also rippling. So we would need to duplicate this layer. Control D, right click, rename this grass. You could delete the ripple effect from the grass, get the pen tool out and just start cutting these out. Let's just mask them out. And if we zoom out, we'll have a quick look. Yeah, I think that's good. So let's start animating the middle water. If you solo, now, as you can see, I have quite a messy mask here. And what I want to do is just solo this water part. So I'm going to duplicate the layer. And I'm just going to rename this middle section water 3 underscore right side. And I'm just going to mask this out and clean the rest of my mask up. I've renamed my layers and I'm going to start using the ripple effect on this section of the water. So the first thing I want to do is grab hold of the water layer, just solo this out, grab hold of its anchor point and place it in the middle. Now with it in the middle, I just want to scale the water up just slightly so it overlaps the other layers. So we could go up by a few, just a little bit. On solo, let's see what that looks like. Let's get rid of the borders. Yeah, we still have a few marks. We can cover that up very well. So the way to cover these holes up here is to duplicate the layer again, move it underneath, move down, and there we go. We can start covering up the rest of the layers. Move this one across just a little bit further up, and it's just a case of covering the rest of the holes up with water. There we are. And I'm going to grab hold of my ripple effect from the first water. Go to the effects control, click, Control C, go to middle water right side, Control V, and we can start seeing that water animate. And we can paste it on the one underneath as well, the filler. Now we're at the end of this lecture. I'm going to use the time after this to clean the masks, make sure there's no holes in the images, and if there is a hole, use a filler. And the way to use a filler is as we showed before, duplicate the layer, bring the layer underneath, and then fill the hole. This could be on the walls, the water, and maybe even sometimes the building. It just depends on where some of the holes are. It's just a case of keeping it clean, cleaning up your image.